Hey, Yo Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. And while you're at it, if you're sick and tired of dropping $60 to $100 for the latest, greatest wrestling video game every single year, stop immediately and go to Wrestler Unstoppable, available exclusively through Facebook. Create your own wrestler, sign contracts, get involved in storylines, headline pay-per-views, even build your own corporation, all included in Wrestler Unstoppable, available now to all of our Facebook users for completely free. If you want to become a member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family and you want your name in the shoutouts like our buddy Harold in St. Louis, then check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast and sign up today. And for the month of November, any $25 contributor will co-host an episode of Going Live with me, and for our 10-month contributors, you'll be entered into a drawing for one winner to also co-host an episode of Going Live with myself. We'll get you guys on the line, we'll go over all the show notes, and we will do an episode together, you and me co-hosting an episode of Going Live. Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget about the fan voting. We're in the greatest female wrestler of all time tournaments going on right now. You can go to the homepage of Pro Wrestling Podcast at prowrestling.com and click on the voting button on the page and cast your vote. You guys have done a great job. There are some great matches in there. This round of the tournament will end tonight at the end of the Survivor Series pay-per-view. So get your votes in tonight. We'll be taking your questions and comments in this episode as we go through the show. Make sure you call into the Pro Wrestling Sound Off line at 267-642-1160. Give us your questions, your comments, everything you want us to include in the show. We'd love to get your feedback. Or if you are listening to us live on the Spreaker application or on Spreaker's website, there is a chat function for the episode. By all means, pop on there, give us questions, comments, and I'll address them immediately in the show. Let's get started right away. It was a crazy night last night. I apologize. I was going to have a live episode for you guys last night, and that did not exactly work out. Something with the internet. But either way, I did get the opportunity to see NXT Takeover. It was a huge show. I'm going to cover my reaction to Takeover and give you my Survivor Series predictions as we go throughout the show. I'm going to touch on all the news for the week that I hit since our last episode. Let's get started with that right away. Triple H is now talking about a potential match with Kurt Angle. He did an interview where he spoke very candidly about the desire to get in the ring with Kurt Angle one more time. He was confident enough to claim that some of Angle's best matches were the ones he had with Triple H. Now, here's the thing. When you talk to industry leaders and wrestlers in the industry who've wrestled with Triple H, he does have a reputation for being one of the most I would say precise and clinical, almost, to like Macho Man quality, precision with his in-ring work. Hulk Hogan loves working with Triple H. Other people, The Rock and Shawn Michaels, and everybody always talk about how much they love working with Triple H because he's such a good technician in the ring. He maps out every move strategically. He thinks about what he's going to do, and he's just on. He's laser focused when he's in the ring. And Kurt Angle, being one of the greatest amateur wrestlers of all time and one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time, you would think the two people who are so good at honing their craft, so good at being precise about what they do in the ring, always will put on a great match. So it actually came out sounding very arrogant on Triple H's part, talking about how great he was and how the matches with Angle were always so phenomenal. But the reality is, he's actually not wrong. If you go back and watch some of those old Triple H Kurt Angle matches from back in 03, 04, 05, you could see some pretty impressive stuff there because they really are two of the best to ever lace up some boots. And I know Triple H takes a lot of flack for, holding people down or whatever it is that people claim that he does. But the reality is, he's been a huge contributor to the world of professional wrestling. He is a Hall of Fame wrestler. He has had the career to back it up. And if he didn't always give in and do angles that, fans wanted him to do, there's not one major established star in the history of the business who has. Hulk Hogan has turned down deals. Steve Austin has turned down deals. Ric Flair has turned down deals. Bret Hart has turned down angles. Everybody has done that who's been a major player in the game. So I don't think Triple H is any different than anybody else in that regard. Cody Rhodes, speaking of potential matches, also talking about a potential match, this time with Kenny Omega. And if there has been any discussion about Cody taking on Omega for leadership of the Bullet Club, he said that discussion has not taken place, but that there's obviously like a frenetic energy around that type of a match. And it's something that at some point, if they choose to go that direction, he would embrace it. It's actually an opportunity for something really cool to happen down the road. I actually think at some point, if Omega makes more of a commitment to Ring of Honor, it would make a lot of sense for him to be the one to dethrone Cody take him off the top of the perch of the Ring of Honor World Championship picture, if that's something they decide to go with. I don't know what they would do with the Bullet Club. For those who check out my articles on www.thesportsjunkies101.com, THA sportsjunkies101.com, when you go to that website, my latest article was the impact of Alpha versus Omega. And it was all about, Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega meeting in the ring. There's a lot of ways they can go with this. How do you book the match? How do you creatively structure this? And, is it a one-off, or is it something where you can establish a longer-term deal with Jericho? Things like that. And when I was talking in that article, which I encourage you to check out, I took a lot of pride in writing that article. One of the things I really wanted to emphasize was how many options you have for really engaging storylines. Now, here's the problem. You got to pick one. You can't pick all the storylines. So, for example, if you go to Wrestle Kingdom, right, and you have the Bullet Club turn their back on Kenny Omega and in some way help Jericho win, and then the reason they do that is to kick him out of the Bullet Club and make Cody the leader, think about that storyline. Or what if they did something where Omega loses to Jericho because the Bullet Club kick Omega out and make Jericho the new leader of the Bullet Club? Or any other combination of how you could make that thing go. Like, how do you book that? And I forget how I phrased it in the article, but something along the lines of, do you have the young lion, the hottest, independent star in the business? And I hate that term, indie star. I really do. The hottest wrestler in the world right now go over the seasoned veteran, the legend, the icon? Or do you have that legendary wrestler defeat the brash young talent and put him in his place, because he can still go? And, the reality is, for those of us who know that this is probably going to be a one-off deal for Chris Jericho, the writing seems to be on the wall. It's very obvious that Jericho no way could he possibly win this match. But stranger things have happened, and I understand one of the things we were going to talk about in this episode is, Chris Jericho's future in WWE. The conversation is already out there that he's already negotiated with Vince McMahon that once this one-off with New Japan is over, he'd be coming back for the Royal Rumble. I don't know if that's actually the case or not, but it's definitely something to take a look at. And what I really find fascinating is everybody seems to be thoroughly sold on the fact that Kenny Omega is going to re-sign with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And if I was a betting man, I would actually agree with that. I think he will. But think about the possibilities of Jericho going to New Japan Pro Wrestling, wrestling Kenny Omega at Wrestle Kingdom, walking out the winner. Okay, not necessarily taking the IWGP United States Championship belt, but walking out as the winner of the match in some fashion. And then Jericho returns to WWE at the Royal Rumble, and heading into WrestleMania season, he needs an opponent, and you debut Kenny Omega to take on Chris Jericho at WrestleMania. Omega's contract ends at the end of January. It would be a great time to start setting that up, and it would be the rematch from Wrestle Kingdom on WWE programming. Now, here's the thing with it. Vince McMahon would never think to do that, because according to Vince McMahon, no other wrestling organization exists except for his own. But Triple H has been the driving force behind a lot of the changes in NXT, in WWE's main roster, and I think Triple H is smart enough to see how crazy marketable that match would be, a rematch of Wrestle Kingdom 12. I really wish WWE would kind of push Ring of Honor aside a little bit, and I'm not saying that because I don't like Ring of Honor, but follow me on this. If they would push Ring of Honor aside just a little bit so that they can get some kind of working relationship with New Japan as well. WWE, back in the day, 80s and 90s, it was almost taboo to even mention another company, but now WWE has done a great job of talking about the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship reigns of Brock Lesnar, of AJ Styles, people of that nature, Kazuchika Okada, or I'm sorry, not Okada, Shinsuke Nakamura. So they've acknowledged the IWGP Championship on WWE programming. It would only make sense to try to open some kind of working relationship with them. I know Impact Wrestling is trying to do that too. Ring of Honor obviously has their deal with them, but Ring of Honor has also emphasized in the past that they would not be opposed to doing business with WWE. Think about the wrestling landscape if these organizations started finding a way to sporadically and periodically cross-exchange talent and really put on some matches that you never, ever in your life thought you would see. Matt Riddle versus Neville and stuff like that. I mean, just crazy matches. My buddy Harold in St. Louis, I promised him I was going to bring this up in this episode. He had what I think is a fantastic idea. I actually ran it by I have a close circle of wrestling fan friends of mine, and they all love the idea too. So Harold, thank you for the suggestion. His idea is that he would love to see WWE invest some time and energy and money when they take Raw to a particular town, finding out what local promotions run that town and having their number one guy show up on WWE programming as a potential challenger to maybe the Cruiserweight Championship or some other championship that you could create, or one that you already have, maybe the Intercontinental Champion or the U.S. Champion, depending on the show, and let a local guy get some TV exposure, you would get an opportunity to see how some of these indie guys would respond on television. If they're terrible, you only further the notion that WWE is where the big boys play, and that's where the pros are, and you would make your brand look stronger. If otherwise, you may actually bump into some incredible indie talents you could then bring in, and all the while, it's 2017. It's not 1985. The internet wrestling community is very much attuned to what's going on in the world of professional wrestling. They pay attention to all the news outlets. We all are smart marks. We know what's going on. So acting like other organizations don't exist is kind of stupid in this day and age, and embracing them and bringing them into the fold and making them a part of your product seems like smart business. I feel like Vince McMahon is kind of stuck in the past, not wanting to be a part of that evolution, but that could be a huge benefactor to future programming. I mean, I think it would be a great idea. So, Harold, thank you so much for the suggestion. I think that would be a great idea. Other big news this week, the Broken Hardy gimmick is about to finally have some kind of resolution. They're scheduled to go to court in early December. It looks like Matt Hardy, he's applied for the patent again. If I gotta wonder how many times Anthem's going to keep fighting the intellectual property. And here's why. Most of the Broken Hardy appearances included Rebby Hardy, Monsignor, and King Maxwell. And the problem with that is that you didn't have signed contracts for those people. So if you put their likeness on any of your DVD collections, former shows, and all that kind of stuff, you owe them money that they never negotiated. They could seek legal compensation for each one of their appearances, and they could really slam you for how much they want for those appearances. So in the long run, you have the legal fees involved for Impact Wrestling, plus the extra royalties you're going to have to pay if you want to put those characters on your DVDs, television programs, Global Wrestling Network, or whatever. Whereas if you let the gimmick go, just let it go. If you let it go and you negotiate a deal where Hardy and his family can use the gimmick, but you can market the previously done intellectual property, they could capitalize on the stuff he did in Impact Wrestling, put out a DVD, put out the Broken Universe, the birth of the Broken Universe, or something like that in DVD form, and you're the origination of that idea, while at the same time Hardy can go on using the gimmick in WWE and only bring more attention to where he started with it, which would be Impact Wrestling. I think they need to get smart on this, and all parties need to come to a mutually beneficial resolution. It's really important. Going to move on, talk about sad news for David Otunga this week, and I'm not trying. I had somebody, I put up the topics on frowrestling.com for you guys to see ahead of time what our episode topics are going to be, and I put that up, sad news for David Otunga, and somebody was like, why are you giving sympathy to this guy? He's an abuser. He's being investigated for domestic battery with his now soon-to-be ex-girlfriend, or I guess is ex-girlfriend, Jennifer Hudson, the mother of his child. They have an 8-year-old together, and they are separating because rumor has it, and again, it is a rumor, so take it with a grain of salt, but rumor has it that she has engaged in an extra-marriage or an extra relationship type affair with a music producer who, coincidentally, I've been told is into like Christian music, which is very bizarre, but that she was like messing around on the side with him, and Otunga found out, and now there's this big legal battle. She's got a protective order against him. I don't know who to believe here with any of this stuff. Otunga was scheduled to be at the Survivor Series kickoff show tonight. I don't know if they'll let him appear because of this. It'll be interesting to see how they go with this. We've just seen so much of this stuff in the news lately. I wonder sometimes how open-minded people are about these topics. Look, if David Otunga in any way got physical with Jennifer Hudson, he deserves any and everything that's coming to him. And I mean that. So for my female listeners in the audience, there is never a reason for a man to put his hands on a female. So I am not supporting an abuser. But on the flip side, we are in a country where our backbone has been innocent until proven guilty. And there's clearly some shady circumstances going on here. I would like to see the resolution come out before I pass judgment on anybody. Does he deserve to lose his job? I don't know. There's no evidence of anything yet. The police themselves have indicated that they currently have no resolution to the conflict. So I don't know how to feel about this. But if he did anything, he deserves to lose his job and be out. If he didn't, he doesn't deserve to have his way of life taken away from him because his wife decided to do something stupid on the side. or his girlfriend, or whatever she is. So, tough situation for Otunga and his family. Hopefully they get things resolved sooner rather than later. I hope everybody was watching Impact Wrestling this past week with Gail Kim officially announcing her retirement from in-ring competition. I thought it was very emotional to hear her talk about thanking Lita and Trish Stratus and people of that nature, Taryn Terrell and Awesome Kong, and you could tell she genuinely felt the emotions that she was spilling in the ring. She's been just such an amazing talent. I've always thought it was such a shame that she didn't get a better push in WWE. I think it's wonderful that she really, in a lot of ways, she is the originator. She and Awesome Kong are the originators of the women's revolution. It's not WWE. I don't care how you spin it. It's not WWE. It's either NXT or it's Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. They were the first women to main event a show, and it was Impact Wrestling, an episode of TNA Impact Wrestling, where they tore the house down. And it was just a phenomenal way to end a show. They went darn near 30 minutes of just brutal wrestling. Awesome Kong hitting her with everything she had. Tiny little Gail Kim fighting off this big monster female. And it was just an awesome match to watch. Match of the year quality. I mean, that good. And I feel like her contributions sometimes get overlooked because she's in Impact Wrestling and not in WWE. So yes, as much as I would love to see her in WWE and would have loved to have seen her had a more substantial career there, I am very proud to say she had a beautiful, amazing career in Impact Wrestling, and she deserves all the accolades that she's received. She received all the cheering, the fans with the chants of "You deserve it" and all that. You still got it, and all that. It was just an awesome moment to watch, and I could tell watching that how emotional she was. I hope she understands the appreciative nature of the internet wrestling community and the wrestling community as a whole, who really appreciate her work. Speaking of people whose work I appreciate, Ric Flair is in the news this week. He had his 30 for 30 special. What an amazing piece of documentary put together there. Fantastic. If you haven't seen it, find it. Find it online. Find it on replays. Whatever you got to. Check out that Ric Flair 30 for 30. But apparently the money for this show has been stolen from Ric Flair. That's what he's saying. He's suing his former management company because they didn't give him any money for the show. They're saying it went into legal fees and all these other things that he never authorized them to pay for, and that he essentially got paid nothing to do the 30 for 30 special, despite the fact that it took a good 18 months to film. So he is suing that company for some of that cash. That guy, he just has no luck when it comes to money. You know, whether it's him spending too much of it or not paying his taxes, going bankrupt, having to get bailed out, and now getting bad deals with his management company. Just bizarre how Ric Flair always falls into these incredibly frustrating situations. Finally, there was a big story yesterday about AJ Styles and whether or not he's planning his departure from WWE in the next couple years. He made a very generic statement about in a couple years he wants to be able to sit back and watch his kids' athletics and this and that. And it made it sound like he was targeting leaving wrestling in 2-3 years. And maybe that's the case. AJ Styles, for as much as he may be relatively new to WWE, he's not new to the business. He's been wrestling for darn near 20 years now. So it's obviously he's going to at some point wind down. But I don't think he was trying to imply that he's planning an exit of WWE. I think he was just being very open and honest and telling people, you know, he's been on the road a long time. It gets harder and harder to maintain your physical conditioning and everything else as your age progresses, and that he, you know, at some point he's going to have to take a step back. I don't think he was actually planning anything, but it was fascinating to see the internet wrestling community blow up with, is AJ Styles leaving WWE? No, that's not the case. So let's jump into NXT Takeover, and my reaction to that. Here's the thing. I thought that the War Games match was a colossal letdown. I really did. I didn't think the match had as much excitement as a typical War Games match. The strange format of, you know, 3 people starting in the ring and 2 people being released at a time really gave it a really strange vibe, a really weird feel. And I didn't really like that. I hated not having a top on the cage. I think that adds to some of the storytelling in the ring when you have that. And the reality is most of our camera angles were just like the old school ones anyways, from old school War Games matchups. So they didn't do a whole lot of overhead views to begin with. So I thought that was a miss by WWE. They should have done that. The ending of the match was fine. I expected the Undisputed Era to win the match anyways. I was a little surprised. I kind of expected Roderick Strong to turn and join the Era, and he didn't. I'm okay with that, but I kind of expected that. But otherwise, I thought the match, there were some big high spots and stuff in there. Killian Dane is obviously a major star, you know, on the horizon. Eric Young needs to go to the main roster sooner than later. The guy's not getting any younger, and he's so talented. He belongs to having a run on the main roster. Obviously, the Undisputed Era will be there at some point in the future. Probably not yet, and I'm okay with that. Let them stay there. But yeah, not overly impressed with War Games. Now, The heartbreak of the night is it sounds like from the rumor mill. And again, this is rumor, so do not go against me if it turns out this isn't the case. But it sounds like the original finish to the NXT Championship match between Drew Galloway and Andrade Cien Almas was supposed to be Drew Galloway, but at some point during the match, it sounds like he tore his bicep. And he knew that during the match, he could tell there was something wrong and he couldn't perform correctly. And in match, they altered the ending and gave the championship to Almas so that they don't have to worry about some kind of angle going forward. You could see the frustration on Drew Galloway's face at the end of the match. You could see him clutching his arm. He's clearly in a lot of pain. And Andre seemed like he didn't know what to do winning the championship. He celebrated longer than I think I've ever seen anybody celebrate in wrestling history. But congratulations, new NXT champion. Congratulations also out to Ember Moon, who became the new NXT Women's Champion. It's been too long that no one's held that title. It was a good match. 4 women really tearing it down. They're all so talented. I'm glad they didn't give it to Kairi Sane, not because she doesn't deserve it, because we just had Asuka. And I don't want people to think of her as like Asuka Light. You know what I mean? I want her to develop her own personality and have her own chase for the title. And I think this was a great way to start her career that way. I would expect she may be the very first person to challenge Ember Moon for the title. If not, Peyton Royce really put on a show. So it'll be interesting to see if she becomes the first challenger to the NXT Women's Championship. The other 2 tidbits I want to talk about from that show. One, Aleister Black and the Velveteen Dream were the absolute highlight of NXT TakeOver. If you didn't get to see their match, please check it out. For me personally, one of the best NXT matches I've ever seen. And how far has Patrick come in the time that he's been performing? I mean, just fantastic. Really great match. They tore the house down. They pretty much stole the show. I had no care in the world about the Lars and Cassius Ohno match to open the show. I thought that was worthless. But the other thing that I did find interesting on the show was just seeing how the kinetic energy of the crowd. NXT is normally like rabid Wolverine fans, and last night they almost seemed flat. Now, I did love that they had like Tyler Bate and all the UK guys there, and they got a huge pop from the fans. And when they introduced Samoa Joe and Finn Balor and Asuka and all that sitting ringside, or when they had Dustin Rhodes and Arn Anderson sitting next to the cage, that was awesome. But I really felt like the fans were flat for this, and I don't know if it's because they're eagerly anticipating Survivor Series or if they weren't doing enough to generate interest in the show. It's really a shame, but all in all, fantastic match for the Velveteen Dream and Aleister Black. Great match for the World Championship surprise switch at the end. Congratulations to Ember Moon, and Lord, please let them do something better next time they do a War Games match, because that was a little bit of a letdown. It's just my opinion. So we're on to the Survivor Series. Let's get our predictions out there. Those of you who patiently waited this whole episode to get to this part, please, before I get to those, don't forget, go to FroWrestling.com, cast your vote for the best female wrestler of all time in round 4 of the tournament. So, Survivor Series. Let's start at the bottom of the card. I hate calling it the bottom of the card. The matchup with the Usos taking on The Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro. Look, there are betting odds out there telling you who's supposed to win everything. The Usos are supposed to pick up the win in this match. I'm actually hoping that doesn't happen, because I feel like if you have Sheamus and Cesaro lose a match cross-promotional to the Usos, in some way you're hurting the potential star power of Cesaro as a world champion, and many fans are still waiting for that to happen. I actually am pulling for The Bar to pull out the win here. I don't expect it, but that's what I want. So my prediction is The Bar goes over the Usos. The next match, the SmackDown women. I actually fully expect the SmackDown women to put on a great show, but the problem is, with Charlotte was pulled out of that match to become women's champion, it really put a damper on that match. And so now I think the Raw women, because of Asuka being on the Raw brand, I don't see any way for Raw to lose that match. So I say my prediction is the Raw women are going to pick up the win in the red versus blue women's match at Survivor Series. Speaking of the women, you've got Charlotte taking on Alexa Bliss. This is a match that we've seen once back when Alexa first won the SmackDown Women's Championship before she transitioned over to Raw. I would love to see this match go long, but I expect they're going to start the build of Charlotte to being the WrestleMania, potentially even main event wrestler to take on Ronda Rousey. Which, by the way, I didn't put this into the episode, but I got to say this real quick. Apparently, there's a rumor out there that James Ellsworth was slotted to face Charlotte in a women's championship match at WrestleMania, and he was supposed to portray a transgender character. You know what? I know WWE likes to push the button on a lot of contemporary issues, but that is one you don't go for. That's just lunacy and stupidity. Like, there's a limit to what you should do, and that would have been horrific. And if that had anything to do with Ellsworth getting taken off the taken off the show and having his contract terminated, then that's pathetic. And apparently those directions came directly from Vince McMahon. What a horrible idea. Anyways, I digress. Back to the Survivor Series. I think Alexa Bliss will put up a good fight, but I'm fully expecting Charlotte to come out the winner of the match. So Charlotte Flair picks up the win for Team Blue. We move on to Baron Corbin taking on The Miz. The Miz is the heavy favorite in the odds makers booking. I actually expect him to win the match. Raw has to stay strong, and here's why. So my official prediction is The Miz wins the match over Baron Corbin, even though it'll be very physical and Corbin will probably beat the snot out of him. I'm expecting interference from the Miztourage, leading to Miz picking up the win. But the reason they got to keep Raw strong is because of later in the card. So we go to the 5-on-5 traditional tag team match, Raw versus SmackDown, and The Miz has to win so that the Raw keeps the advantage because SmackDown will tie it up when, as I predict, the SmackDown 5-man team will defeat Raw. And it looks bizarre on paper, but look, if you think back about previous year's Survivor Series, whenever there's a big, unstoppable monster, they either get counted out or disqualified. That'll take out Braun Strowman. The rest of the Survivor Series, the teams are very similar. They're both very skilled, but SmackDown has to pick up the win to keep it tied so that we have an even number of Raw wins and SmackDown wins ahead of the World Champion versus World Champion match, which I actually expect to be the main event, even though it should probably go before the 5-on-5 match. So if they do it last, if they do the 5-on-5 last, it'll be kind of weird for Raw to have already won the night number-wise, and then SmackDown win the last match. I think they have to flip that and put the world champions on last because I expect Brock Lesnar is going to pick up the win over AJ Styles due to interference by Jinder Mahal, who is not on the show. Incidentally, I should throw that out there. One of my other predictions is we are going to see Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn tonight. They're going to get involved in a SmackDown tag team match between the Usos and the Bar, because I think we're going to see the tag team feud coming up, Zayn and Owens versus the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. So I wanted to throw that out there because I really think that's the direction they're going to go with that. But we'll have to see. So those are my predictions. I predict that overall Raw is going to have the advantage at the end of the night. They'll have one more win than SmackDown, so they'll win the evening. But I think SmackDown will win the most important match, the 5-on-5 SmackDown versus Raw match. I think that'll be the way that goes. So for now, that's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next time when we run down all the latest news and rumors. We'll review what happens at Survivor Series. I will be live tonight tweeting throughout the show. By all means, if you're a fan, if you want to go on and tweet back with me, that'd be great. I'm sending a call to action to all of my listeners. Do me a favor. So apparently YouTube is changing their distribution agreement, and I am not going to be able to put the videos up in the same manner that I have before starting in December, unless I reach 1,000 subscribers. I'm sitting at 326, and that's because 7 people have joined the Pro Wrestling Podcast family this week. Thank you to all 7 of them. You guys are awesome. Please spread the word. We would really appreciate anybody who can subscribing to the Pro Wrestling Podcast on YouTube. It helps us grow the brand, but it also helps us generate advertising. And here's the thing. I'm not looking to make a bunch of money on this thing. That's not my deal. But what I would like to do is I'd like to get you guys better production quality. I'm sure throughout this episode you've heard my kids running around upstairs on the microphone. You've heard my chair creaking. All kinds of silly, stupid stuff. I'd love to be able to increase the quality, the production value with this show. And the way I do that is through YouTube advertising. And in order for that to continue, I have to have 1,000 subscribers. If you are not willing to subscribe, I completely understand. You don't want to have your email box and your YouTube page lit up with all these different subscriptions. But if you know somebody who is a wrestling fan, who appreciates what it is that I do with you guys, and who would like to be supportive of the brand, we would really appreciate, the Pro Wrestling Podcast would appreciate any subscribers who would like to become a part of the Pro Wrestling family. So by all means, please do that if you are willing. Special thanks as always go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects we used in today's show. Today's podcast is sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing your new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to frowrestling.com and clicking the icon in the middle of the screen to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com, contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. If you're looking for your next career move and are considering college, university life, or just some formal training for your next career decision, go to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all your higher education needs, as Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today. And if you're looking for more wrestling news and rumors, go to www.sportsjunkies101.com for the latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Like I said earlier, check out the impact of Alpha versus Omega. It's my latest article on that page. And until next time, take care, everybody, and have a fantastic evening.